Let's talk about another factor in this economy that has helped the economy through these years. That would be the housing market. Just today, very strong new home sales figures for July. Peter, what about housing? That has been the straw that's been stirring the economic drink the last few years.
Well, I agree that our bubble economy rests on the foundation of the housing market, and it's a very weak foundation. The housing market today is very similar to the internet market of the late 1990s. And it's not going to last much longer. At some point, the lenders are going to balk. Interest rates are going to keep on rising as more and more housing supply comes on the market. Eventually, the bubble's going to break.
Tell me, what is the worst case scenario? So we have so many economists coming on our air and saying, oh, this is a bubble and it's going to burst and this is going to be a real issue for the economy. Some say it could even cause a recession at some point. What is the worst case scenario if, in fact, we were to see prices come down substantially across the country?
Well, I guess I don't buy your premise. It's a pretty unlikely possibility. We've never had a decline in house prices on a nationwide basis. So what I think is more likely is that house prices will slow, maybe stabilize, might slow consumption spending a bit. I don't think it's going to drive the economy too far from its full employment path.
Although there are more and more people saying that the U.S. economy will be in a recession next year, it is still a minority position. Why do you think that a recession is coming, and just how bad is it going to be?
I think it's going to be pretty bad, and whether it starts in 07 or 8, I think is immaterial, and I also think it's going to last not just for quarters, but for years. See, the basic problem with the U.S. economy is we have too much consumption and borrowing, and not enough production and savings. And what's going to happen is the American consumer is basically going to stop consuming and start rebuilding his savings, especially when he sees his home equity evaporate. And when you have the economy 70% consumption, you can't address those imbalances without a recession. You know, rather than the recession being resisted, it should really be embraced, because the disease is all this debt-financed consumption. The cure is that we stop consuming and start saving and producing again, and that's a recession. And sometimes, you know, medicine tastes bad, but you got to swallow it.
Art Laffer, you hear him? He says the consumer is going to slow down in order to rebuild the savings. And you know that 2/3 of the American economy is driven by the consumer. Do you believe that?
No, I don't believe any of it whatsoever, Michelle. Excuse me. But, you know, what he's saying is that savings is way down in this country, but wealth has risen dramatically. The United States economy has never been better shape. There is no tax increase coming in the next couple of years. Monetary policy is spectacular. We have freer trade than ever before. And not only that, but there are no incomes policies things here. I think Peter's just totally off base, and I don't think it's going to be... I mean, I just don't know where he's getting his stuff.
Well, one of us is off base, but it's definitely not me. When you see the stock market come down and the real estate bubble burst, all that phony wealth is going to evaporate. And all that's going to be left is all the debt that we accumulated to foreigners.
Peter, I'm going to take a bet with you on this one. I'll bet you a penny on this one that if you'll sign a letter saying that if you're wrong, you'll sign a letter that you were wrong to me in this, but you're just way off base. There is nothing out there that tells us we're going to have a nice slowdown, but it's not going to be a crash.
Let me ask you this.
And what's going to happen in 2007 is a lot of these artificially low ARM payments are going to be reset upward. You're going to start to see both the government and the lenders reimposing lending standards and tightening up on credit, and you're going to see a lot of the speculative buyers turn into sellers, and these sky-high real estate prices are going to come crashing back down to earth.
First of all, I have no idea what Peter Schiff is talking about. I agree with Tom. I think they're going to be probably up to about 10%. What artificial lending standard are you talking about?
Word to Peter.
Most of the profits that people have in real estate are going to vanish, just like the profits in the dot-coms in 1999-2000. It's a fantasy. People can't sell their house. The inventories are exploding all over the country. Houses are on the market for 6 months a year. There's no bidders. The price is going to fall through the floor. You guys are deluding yourself.
This scenario envisions that consumer spending, supported by rising incomes and the recent decline in energy prices, will continue to grow near its trend rate, and that the drag on the economy from the housing sectors will gradually diminish.
Foreigners around the world have been lending us money for years. They're now finding out that we can't afford to repay. This is going to be an enormous credit crunch. The party is over for the United States. We cannot continue borrowing to live beyond our means and consuming foreign products.
But subprime is tiny. Subprime is a tiny, tiny blip.
It's not tiny, and again, it's not just subprime. It's the entire mortgage market. Right?
All right, well, Tracy, you're disagreeing.
You're simply wrong. Well, you're simply wrong about that.
No, I'm not.
Charles, you were just speaking. What do you think?
I think volatility is going to be here until we can look at the books of major financials, so that means until the next round of earnings, but I think the worst is over.
Ben?
Well, I think stocks will be a heck of a lot higher a year from now than they are now.
Tracy?
Yeah, but we have more volatility to go, at least through September.
Stuart?
The big banks, the central banks, still have plenty of big guns to fire. They'll fire them when necessary. The worst is over.
Peter, meanwhile, I guess razor blades are in order?
The worst is yet to come. The fundamentals are not sound. They're awful. If the fundamentals were sound, we wouldn't be having these problems.
So we expect moderate growth going forward. We believe that if the housing sector begins to stabilize, and if some of the inventory corrections that are still going on in manufacturing begin to be completed, that there's a reasonable possibility that we'll see some strengthening of the economy sometime during the middle of the year. Our assessment is that there's not much indication at this point that subprime mortgage issues have spread into the broader mortgage market, which still seems to be healthy. And the lending side of that still seems to be healthy. The global economy continues to be strong, supported by solid economic growth abroad. Overall, the U.S. economy appears likely to expand at a moderate pace over the second half of 2007, with growth then strengthening a bit in 2008 to a rate close to the economy's underlying trend.